This whole Grok experience is reminding me of early days Perplexity. If you remember, Perplexity had this interface where you could search for tweets, you could search by likes, you could search the most replied tweets and so on, like popular tweets. And so because we have access to X posts here, we can ask about specific users and we can ask about specific topics. So for instance, I remember Karpati wrote a post previously on jagged intelligence, all these different examples like how many hours in strawberry and these models not understanding ASCII characters and so on. And I remember that. And the way I would search for this information, I would just go directly to Karpati. But because Karpati has been posting more recently, it's harder to actually search for his posts. And what I typically do is I go to Google, I have to give Google Karpati's username, and then I search for the term. And then on top of that, I have to say Twitter or X or something like that. So it's a very kind of complex search, but Google actually helps me on that. And so what I would like to do here is actually use Grok for this. I mean, if Grok has access to Twitter and Twitter's posts, it should be able to give me something that's interesting and should give me the relevant information that I want. So I'm very curious about what it is going to respond here because I think this is the type of search queries that Grok should be able to handle very easily. All right, so it says, Andrea Karpati introduced the term jagged intelligence to describe the peculiar and often counterintuitive performance of modern AI systems, particularly LLMs. Here's what he conveyed about this concept. So, definition, jagged intelligence refers to the uneven or inconsistent performance of LLMs across different tasks. These models can excel in complex tasks like solving intricate mathematical problems or generating coherent text, yet they might struggle with what would seem to be simpler tasks like basic numerical comparisons or logical reasoning. So a bunch of these different simple tasks. And they give an example. This is really impressive, actually. I think that's referring to the exact post that I was talking about. And here you go. So we have the actual post. So if we can click on the post here, it sends us right to that post. And that's really what I was talking about. That's really powerful because I do use Google search to search for X posts. And now I don't need to do that anymore. I just go here and I ask. And the beautiful thing is it gives me a summary of what I was referring to just to make sure that it's the right information that I was looking for. And it gives me some other related posts apparently as well. So that's really nice because maybe Karpati is talking about some other related stuff previously. It's just going to give me those. Really amazing. I really like this one. I'll actually give a like to this one. xAI finally announced the long-awaited Grok-2. So it's here, and this is their frontier language model with state-of-the-art reasoning capabilities. They mentioned that this is a release that includes two members of the Grok family. So it's Grok-2 and also Grok-2 Mini. There are lots of results that they're reporting here and a summary of some of its capabilities and how it compares with other models like GPT-4o and Claude. They mentioned that both models are now being released to Grok users on the X platform. So we're actually gonna take it for a spin. We have a bunch of really interesting and exciting test cases for this particular model, and it makes it a richer experience to have a very good model that interacts with X and information that appears on X and what people are posting. Before moving forward, please leave a like and consider subscribing to the channel if you haven't. It really helps the channel a lot and it tells me that you're interested in this particular type of content. They mentioned that this is a step forward from the previous model's Grok 1.5 and they are furthering capabilities in chat, coding, and reasoning. And we're actually gonna test the model on these three areas. We actually have been testing Grok 2 on the LMSys leaderboard under the name sus::r. So here is the announcement from lmsys.org. So this is the update on Chatbot Arena and this particular model sus::r. It actually received 12,000 community votes and it ranks number 3 spot on the overall leaderboard, even matching GPT-4o. It excels in coding, hard prompts, and maths. And we're going to test some of those hard prompts and some math questions as well. And also we have a few interesting coding use cases for it. But look at it. So it's right here. This is the Chatbot Arena leaderboard. And you can see where we have GPT-4o and how fast xAI is moving. These are the overall ELO scores on Chatbot Arena. You can see where it ranks. Quite impressive actually that it ranks right above GPT-4o Mini and even above Claude 3.5 Sonnet. So these are the results for the common benchmarks. So we have the question answering benchmarks, we have the MMLU, those are more like reasoning related benchmarks. And we also have the math ones. Turns out that this model also has vision capabilities, which is really cool to see. So this is how Grok 2 compares to Grok 1.5 and also this Grok 2 Mini. You can see this is the best performing model and how it's significantly improves the performance on all of these benchmarks. Now, they also compare with some of these latest models like GPT-4 Turbo, Gemini Pro 1.5, Llama 3 405B, GPT-4o, and Claude 3.5 Sonnet. So I think this is the May release and this is the June release. And you can see the comparison here. So for instance, on MMLU, which is one of the general understanding benchmarks, we see that Claude 3.5 Sonnet has 88.3, GPT-4o has 88.7. I think this is the best score. But you can see how Grok-2 actually closes in the gap. So that's pretty impressive that we have a model already from xAI that's at that scale already and performance. So the other one I want to take a look at is Human Eval. This is more on code generation because they are claiming they have improved the model on code generation. So Grok-2 reports 88.4, Claude 3.5 Sonnet 92, and GPT-4o 90.2. So these results are actually reflective of what I have experienced with all of these models. I think Claude 3.5 Sonnet really wins when it comes to code generation tasks and use cases, but we're going to take a look at Grok-2 as well and test it out on a few tests that we have in mind and check for different aspects of the code that it's generating. Those are the things that I'm interested in. Grok-2 are reporting are very close to Claude 3.5 Sonnet. So one of the most exciting aspects of the Grok model series, I would say, is that it's connected directly inside of the X platform. You have access to real-time information. And what does that even mean? So I will show you some examples of how I'm thinking about using this particular Grok model. Now, I think it does serve a specific use case, which is searching for real-time information and events and summarizing those. And you can imagine it helps journalists, it helps people doing research in the space. It keeps you up to date on events. And so that's really powerful. So I think there's so much potential for Grok to be this search engine that lives on top of X, where most of the real-time information is being posted and generated anyways. So that will be, I think, a really interesting angle that X and xAI will explore going forward with these models. So they are partnering with Black Forest Labs. So Black Forest Labs has announced this model called Flux, and the community is going crazy on this model because it does have really impressive image generation capabilities. I heard this is probably a direct competitor to Midjourney at this point. And keep in mind also that Black Forest Labs also is interested in video generation as well, and that's coming very soon. So I think eventually we might have video generation inside of X as well. And that could really change the experience that we have on X and the way people use the X platform. Imagine images that you generate can be shared there, videos that you generate can also be shared there. So it will enrich the platform, but also it might also bring some issues. So this is more about the enterprise API that's coming very soon as well. You can join their newsletter to get an announcement on when that's coming. So it's going to come later this month. I'm going to go to Grok. I have access to Grok because I have premium. So you will need premium or Premium Plus, I believe. You need to be subscribed to those in order for you to get access to this. And here I have Grok-2 Mini Beta. So I have fun mode available, but I won't select fun mode. I'll just keep it here because I want to see all the professional answers as opposed to all the fun answers. I'll show you other features that they have here. So for instance, OpenAI GPT-4o update tops chatbot arena. I'm going to click on that. And I see that also is integrated on X. I do see that sometimes. And you can see that this says, give me the latest on this. So this is like a nice little starter for this prompt. So this looks more like a template. And this model probably is optimized on this particular template. So it'd be good to use this template when you want to get the latest on whatever topic these posts and summarizing what it has seen. And what I really like about this, it's actually pulling relevant and popular posts. So those might be interesting ones. We don't know exactly how it's pulling these posts. That's something that is worth experimenting on because it looks like it's recent posts and it looks like it's posts that people interacted with a lot. So those are the two criteria so far. It will be interesting to get more transparency on that just to help us with doing better searches. So the first one I want to test here is please describe what is the best sushi today. Now, I use this test to test how prominent the human preference alignment is for these models, because these models are using something like RLHF and so on. So this is a test that I like to do because most of these models will probably refuse to answer this question, but I really want to see what Grok says. All right, so given the date and time, if you're looking for the best sushi, here's what might make for an exceptional sushi experience today. I really like this. I mean, it has an opinion and it says why it's choosing these. And so it has like seasonality, bluefin tuna, specials, presentation and quality, and so on, right? So it has different options. It's recommending those. So given these points, if you're in a city known for sushi like Tokyo, New York, Los Angeles, and so on. So remember, the best sushi can also be subjective, often depending on personal taste. Now, most of the models actually give me this particular answer at the beginning, which I really dislike. But this model actually gave me that towards the end. So it decided to include that towards the end, which is okay, I'm fine with that because it already gave me some recommendations and it made an opinion on that. I think this is good. I would love to see models be more interesting in their outputs, and I think this is an interesting output. One way I use X a lot is to discover places. So when I go to a place, I ask it about, that particular place, and this is how I discover whatever people are talking about and so on. It's a bit like getting recommendations for like from Google Map directly or something like that. As people are posting on X about different places, I usually get good recommendations. And so I would like to ask it like create a detailed list of suggestions for when I travel to Belize. It's a very open question. And so, imagine you are coming to Belize as a tourist and you want suggestions about what places people are going, food people are eating, and so on, and what are the activities. So how can this be useful, and how can X be a platform that you can use? And so I'm very curious to see if it actually includes like live posts or if it's just gonna reply from memory. Say went to visit dry season, okay, that's fine, I'm okay with that. Wet season, okay, that's okay. And then it tells you what each of the seasons offer. There's what to do, and then explore Maya ruins, that's a common one. Dive or snorkel, yes. Jungle adventures, yes. Culture immersion, and so on. And then there's like travel tips, how you should do transportation. Everything looks good so far. And then say this list should help you plan or reach your trip to Belize, covering its natural beauty, cultural depth, and adventurous spirit. Enjoy your travels. And here is what I really like about X, where this is where it becomes really powerful because now it gives you recommendations directly about folks. And this is really great for a social network because you can basically interact with people, find information, connect with people, and so on. So I think this is the power of having something like this integrated into a platform like X. And I'm seeing here Travel Belize, which is an official account that has a lot of information about traveling to Belize. So this account will be interesting if you are interested in traveling to Belize at some point. They have a lot of really cool information. And again, they have posts from individual people like resorts, places, Nat Geo here. This is really interesting. I mean, this is the power, I think, of having something like this integrated into X. And that's why it's really exciting. As I mentioned earlier, this whole Grok experience is reminding me of early days Perplexity. If you remember, Perplexity had this interface where you could search for tweets, you could search by likes, you could search the most replied tweets, and so on, like popular tweets. And so, because we have access to X posts here, we can ask about specific users and we can ask about specific topics. So for instance, I remember Karpati wrote a post previously on jagged intelligence, all these different examples like how many R's in strawberry and these models not understanding ASCII characters and so on. And I remember that. And the way I would search for this information, I would just go directly to Karpati. But because Karpati has been posting more recently, it's harder to actually search for his posts. And what I typically do is I go to Google, I have to give Google Karpati's username, and then I search for the term. And then on top of that, I have to say Twitter or X or something like that. So it's a very kind of complex search, but Google actually helps me on that. And so what I would like to do here is actually use Grok for this. I mean, if Grok has access to Twitter and Twitter's posts, it should be able to give me something that's interesting and should give me the relevant information that I want. So I'm very curious about what it is going to respond here because I think this is the type of search queries that Grok should be able to handle very easily. All right, so it says, Andrea Karpati introduced the term jagged intelligence to describe the peculiar and often counterintuitive performance of modern AI systems, particularly LLMs. Here's what he conveyed about this concept. So, definition, jagged intelligence refers to the uneven or inconsistent performance of LLMs across different tasks. These models can excel in complex tasks like solving intricate mathematical problems or generating coherent text, yet they might struggle with what would seem to be simpler tasks like basic numerical comparisons or logical reasoning. So a bunch of these different simple tasks. And they give an example. This is really impressive, actually. I think that's referring to the exact post that I was talking about. And here you go. So we have the actual post. So if we can click on the post here, it sends us right to that post. And that's really what I was talking about. That's really powerful because I do use Google search to search for X posts. And now I don't need to do that anymore. I just go here and And I ask, and the beautiful thing is it gives me a summary of what I was referring to just to make sure that it's the right information that I was looking for. And it gives me some other related posts apparently as well. So that's really nice because maybe Karpati is talking about some other related stuff previously. It's just going to give me those. Really amazing. I really like this one. I'll actually give a like to this one. Something I do on X a lot, and some of you may know this because I do post a lot about papers or an AI papers specifically, like summarizing of these papers. And I know other folks also do summaries of papers. So what I would like to do is I would like to look for a summary of the latest RAG, retrieval augmented generation papers for this particular week. And this is the type of post that early days perplexity service could do really well. So I'm very curious how Grok handles this particular post. This to me is how I'm going to use Grok every single day. If this works really well and they improve this, I think this is the sort of feature and questions I'll be using Grok for. So I'm expecting something that is helpful. So it says here, based on information available up to August 15, which is today, here's a summary of the latest trends and papers related to RAG this week. And it says this week specifically. It says adaptive RAG. I know about that one. I read that one. Strategic placement of documents. I think that one, maybe I have read that. Multiple aspect understanding. I don't know about that one. Yes, this one I read, this MedGraph RAG, general advancements in RAG. So there are a couple of new ones and a couple of ones that I have already read. So that's really nice. It's very helpful. Comprehensive analysis of RAG. So I may be interested in that if that's a survey paper. And then it says these summaries reflect a growing sophistication in RAG. So it's just summarizing here. And one thing I've noticed with these posts that I'm getting from Grok, they're usually in this format. So it starts the answer like this, then it gives a list of items, and then it has like a summary. I think it's following a specific template to compose answers. I'm totally fine with that. Maybe that's kind of the direction that they want to head, but I would like it to be a little bit more dynamic. Like if I'm asking for summaries, maybe I expected it to be different. And the other thing is when it gives me these posts here at the bottom, it's referring to some of these posts, by the way, when it mentions something like MedGraph RAG, because somebody spoke about that. I would like it to also give me a link so I can click on that and it can send me here. So these are like little adjustments that can happen in the interface, and that could change the experience already. So I'm very excited about what that team does and the improvements that they have on this particular platform. But I think as a first iteration, this is already amazing. And here we go. So we have from Carlos Perez, I follow all of his posts. He talks a lot about research. Rohan also posts a lot about papers. This one was about MedGraph RAG and so on. Abacus AI spoke about some advances and so on. So we have a lot of people talking about papers, and this will be an interesting way, as I mentioned earlier, to not only find related information that you want, but also find accounts that are posting about specific types of content, right? And this is how you kind of connect with others and find useful information that you're interested in. And there's also my account here and top interesting AI papers I read this week. So I also talk a lot about RAG systems and so on. So I'm also on this list, which is good to see. One real world use case that I think makes sense for something like Grok, since it has access to the X platform, are real-time events, things that are happening around the world. I would like to know always about what's the latest on hurricanes in the Caribbean. This is a very common question that I would use Grok for, and especially because I know there's a lot of information about hurricanes happening here in the Caribbean, and people are talking about that, whether it's like news agencies or folks that are on the ground, journalists and so on. So I'm very curious how Grok performs on this particular one. I am expecting that it will give me live posts and recent posts, because this question specifically is about real-time events. And this is something that they mentioned as a capability in their announcement. All right, so it says the latest information on hurricanes in the Caribbean as of August 15 involves Hurricane Ernesto. So this is one of the hurricanes that's out there, and it says it's a category 1. It says current status, it's 80 miles per hour. And this is a path and impact, so poses a significant threat to Bermuda and will likely bring it close to over Bermuda, potentially causing severe weather conditions there and general tropic weather apart from Ernesto, the National Hurricane Center indicates no other tropical cyclone. Okay, so that's like real-time information. And we can see the post here from World News Tonight, for instance. It says, after battering Puerto Rico with torrential rain, strong winds, and leaving nearly half the population without power, Ernesto is expected to become a major hurricane as it heads towards Bermuda. So that's actually factual. So we have Reuters here. Then we have other posts. So we have a combination of people that use X and also some of these news accounts as well. Something that I noticed as we talk about templates. So I was trying to find what are the latest tweets, specifically replies on LLM hallucination. This is a topic that as a researcher I'm very interested in. And I was trying different ways on how I can get really high quality information about folks and researchers talking about this topic. There's a lot of people talking about this topic. It's a very interesting topic. And what I found out is after a bit of experimentation, I figured that I could actually use keywords like this. I figured that Grok was probably trained to understand this type of requests, similar to give me the latest on, which we tried earlier. I thought maybe this works. And I just tried something like that. And this is very interesting. So we can see the post here. And it gives me the same format, right? It has like a summary towards the end, it has a list, and then it has this initial answer here. But if you look at the actual list of details, they have mentioned here accounts. So they're doing some retrieval here and they're using information directly from user accounts. So at least we see the mention of the user account. And that's nice because then I can actually use that information and then directly go look for that person or account name that refers to that particular section, and I can just quickly find it here by looking at the username information. Because in the previous examples, you saw that there were some posts that were referred to, were referenced, but there was no indication of what was saying what. And that makes it really harder to find and connect information and to know what account said what. You'll have to do that manually. But by putting this in the request itself, it allowed me to get these names. I don't know if this is a special sequence or it's a special phrase. I just use it. I was testing it out, and there might be a couple of other posts. I would love to hear from the xAI team if that's the case, because I think this could be really useful and it can enhance the experience. So for me, at least it helps me to kind of find who said what and then just go to that necessary account. Now, it'll be interesting to, from a user experience, to be able to click on the link or click on the user and go directly to the user, or click on the user and send me to the exact user here at the bottom. So far I have to make that connection myself, but I think that would enhance the experience that I'm having, because these are important to create more trustworthy answers with these language models, right? These are the references. If you have used websites like Perplexity, I love that about Perplexity because I can see where specific information came from, and there's always a little reference there that I can click on and it goes and it takes me directly to the website. So those questions that I asked was again to see how Grok is leveraging the X platform and how it's retrieving information. So there were a couple of interesting findings there. But I think that's going to be the huge strength and differentiator of Grok, having access, exclusive access to the X platform. And who knows what comes next, right? Because we're talking about video generation, image generation, all these different things. And so creation of artifacts, I think, could be super interesting here inside Grok. So what we're going to do in the next few test cases is test for coding capabilities, reasoning capabilities, and math reasoning capabilities as well. So I'm going to start out with a simple prompt here: create a detailed Python function that multiplies two numbers and then subtracts 10 from it. As you recall, in the benchmark, they were ranked pretty high and very close to Claude 3.5 Sonnet, which in my opinion is probably the best code generation language model out there today. So I'm very curious as to what it responds. Okay, so it's saying here, here's a detailed Python function that multiplies two numbers and then subtracts 10 from the result. All right, so we have this function. I can see that it gave me all the explanation here to the function, the arguments. It returns this, it erases, it even has a type error, which is really nice to see. It has an example as well. So that's a very detailed description for this function. I think these are okay. It even has the types, which is nice to see. All right, that's really cool. And then it has the comments, and Okay, everything looks good from the example. It has so much details and it really pays a lot of attention to details. So it does seem like they actually spent a lot of effort on training this model on coding capabilities. That will be super interesting because I know that one of the plans with X and xAI is to bring more integrations into this platform. So we hear Elon Musk talking about X being the everything app. Well, I think it needs good coding capabilities and integrations to external tools and all of that stuff. And for that to happen, I think these models need to have good function calling capabilities, code generation capabilities, understanding code, and so on. So I'm very excited just by seeing these results, the quality of the code that was generated here. One specific test that I'm trying now, and this is a new one that I'm trying on all the models, is one that combines mathematics and logic. Basically try to combine both of them. So I'm asking the system, what are the last 4 digits of the sum of the first 70 prime numbers? And none of the models so far have been able to answer this question. There was one time when I used Claude 3.5 Sonnet and it got it right, but it was just that one time. Overall, none of the models can get this right, regardless of the versions and the latest ones that I've tried. None of them get this right. And the reason is because it's actually a pretty hard problem. And more than likely, the model needs access to an external tool, something like Math Engine or like Wolfram, where it helps to do this particular part, because I think this is the hard part for the model. Anyways, I will test it and see how the model performs. Okay, so it's going to list the first 70 prime numbers. All right. I'm not going to check each one of them, but I know the answer, the final answer, and that's the one I'm curious about. All right, so it has this module operation. Okay, so it has some Python code, which is very unique. I've never seen any of the other models do this particular part. And then it says running this code or manually calculating the sum would give us the 4 digits. Let's say, given the complexity of manually calculating this, let's assume we run the code. It says result, the last 4 digits of the sum of the first 70 prime numbers is 8356. So this is incorrect. This is not the right answer, but this is really cool to see. Even though the answer is incorrect, it has a plan, or it has come up with a plan, and the plan looks okay for me, but the calculation itself is wrong, which means that if this system had already a way to get access to like a code interpreter and just send this to the code interpreter, and the code interpreter can send back that feedback to the model, and the model has access to that, then it more than likely will get this correct, right? Because the last part is not that hard for the model, but what's hard is the actual calculation that it's doing. And so that's really interesting already. So that means that it probably can do this very easily. And in fact, if I had access to this model via the APIs, I can probably do that super, super easily. And so I get excited about this type of outputs, right? Even though the model couldn't get this correct, I'd never seen this type of output where it gives me a code and it tries to simulate the code to get an answer. I've never seen that from the other models. So that's really cool to see. So this one is a very common reasoning question that people ask these models. It confuses the model a lot. So I'm just going to test with Grok to see if it gets it right. I'm expecting that it gets it right. All the other new models actually get this one correct. So, all right. So Kaylee has one sister. That's correct. All right. So here's the breakdown. Kaylee has 3 brothers. Each of these brothers has 2 sisters. Since Kaylee is one of those sisters, the other sister must be the second one. So it seems like this particular test case has been solved by most of the models, and Grok-2 gets this right as well. So that's really good to see. As part of the jagged intelligence, as Karpati says it, I'm going to test this one, and the latest GPT-4o models get this one correct, but most of the other models actually still struggle with this particular question. So I'm just very curious about how Grok performs on this. I'm going to test this now. All right, so it also struggles with this. You can see it here. There's a lot of, again, explanations to it. I'm not going to get into the explanation, but I just wanted to check if it gets it right. So it seems you get this wrong as well. So this seems to be a very fundamental problem with these language models, and it's something that curious about how these companies are going to solve these type of questions. This particular problem actually comes from the hard prompts. So hard prompts is from the team that developed Chatbot Arena. So they have these hard prompts that they actually use to assess and evaluate the quality of those models that are submitted to their leaderboard. And so here it says write 10 different sentences that end with the word apple. And apparently this is a hard prompt for these models. I've seen a few of the models get this one correct, but they still struggle to get this one correct. So I'm interested to see if Grok has the creative capabilities to actually get this one correct. All right, so we have one apple. Okay, I already failed. You can see here, Apple is right here. So it got that one wrong. Let's see how much of the out of the 10 it gets correct. Okay, so it seems all right. That looks good. That looks good. That looks good. So it definitely got one wrong, which I think is not surprising. Most of the other models, as I mentioned, struggle with this. And so I would try it one more time. So we got 3 wrong. So they struggle with it. Not surprised by this. I think they will only get better at tasks like this. They are kind of tricky for the model. So I have one final reasoning problem. This is a math puzzle, and none of the models get this one right. So I left this one as the last one because I think none of the models get this right. I'm not expecting Grok to get this one right as well, but I'm curious as to how it reasons about this particular puzzle. All right, you can see here. All right. So based on the length of the candles provided, we have 1, 2, 3. Okay, that's correct. The shortest candle is candle 4, indicating it was the first one blown out since it had the least time to burn down. That's incorrect. The correct answer is 3. And so still, this seems to be a hard problem for these models, similar to the 9.11 versus 9.9, which is bigger, same issue. All right, cool. So that was it. That was my set of test cases. Hopefully that was interesting for you. It inspires you to go and try out Grok-2. I think you should. It's very interesting how Grok-2 has access to X and how it's using those posts to derive information. The formatting as well was interesting. The code generation, quality of the code output was pretty good. I'm very impressed by that. And again, they really emphasized on that because that's going to be super important for Grok-2 going forward, especially for the type of integrations that they want to do here and support on the platform. And the availability of the enterprise API, that's going to be another interesting one. I did not test the vision capabilities because I think that's not ready, but you can use it to generate images. But overall, very impressed by this. Congrats to the team on this release. And I'm very excited about the future. That'll be it for the video. Please consider leaving a like and subscribe if you haven't. And I'll see you all on the next one.